I won't string this out. You don't want to hear all the boring details. Somewhere around the second floor up from where we'd crawled out of the elevator, I stopped tasting blood and sweat in my mouth. Somewhere around the 10th dead merc that I stepped over, I stopped feeling the highs and lows of the fights. My emotions no longer registering, as I fell so easily back into the groove of a professional killer. This wasn't a dirty fight full of odd twists and goblins in mech suits. There was no magic here, no hacking, no strength of will. This was classic wet work. If Halo and Tabitha had been by my side, I would have been able to trick myself into thinking I was still in service. I suspected Hercule had had some training somewhere in his past. He fell into step too easily. Reva had never been a soldier, not in a traditional sense, but she had worked as part of a team in combat scenarios. She knew the drill. We flowed into hallways and rooms, barrels up, stand slow. Shells hit the floor, the metallic staccato somehow audible over the gunfire. It was all I heard. Not the screams, not the sound of flesh being rent asunder. I couldn't. I had learned long ago to tune it out. That way, madness lay. Don't get me wrong, we didn't have it all our own way. We took hits on that march to the penthouse. Hercule had seen better days. Reva was wincing more and more with every room we cleared. The mercs just kept coming. I had to think of them as mercs. They couldn't be considered security with all the kit they had. They were privatized military. But they were green as grass. None of them, bar a couple, had seen action, and it showed. A squad is only as good as its weakest member. The ones who are competent stand out like a sore thumb. Take them out and the weak piss themselves and fall to pieces pretty fucking quick. Once the morale falls, the rest of the squad are useless. None of them ran. None of them tried to surrender. To be fair, I didn't give them a choice. You couldn't call it murder. They had guns too. It was a cull. Occasionally, my hand touched the book that sat nestled in the belt pouch, and I delved into the power it held. It was how I could take out the leaders and veterans first, if I didn't just use them to gun down their own men, that is. They were pawns, but they were pawns of a mass-murdering psychopath. They were complicit as far as I was concerned. We had looked out of a couple of the huge glass windows as we spiraled our way to the top. No one on the outside was showing the building any particular attention. No backup, no police, nobody trying to get in. Eve must have blocked any and all communications with the outside world. Good. I didn't like unexpected backup, and I really didn't want the cops getting mixed up in this. I wasn't very keen on having an audience. 3 on the stairs. They've bottlenecked, I relayed to Hercule over the comm. I was spotting using my other sight. I was, however, holding back from using too much magic. A small part of me was worried I would run out. I'd never used the book before, and I didn't know if it had limits or if it could burn me out. On top of that, I had no idea what Sierra would have in store for us once we reached the top. Hercule produced a stolen grenade from a pouch. "Lean in close, boys. I'm running low on these, so you'll have to share." He pulled the pin and lobbed it down the hallway. "What does this hallway and a French deli have in common?" The explosion rocked the floor and a cloud of dust rushed past my hiding space. Hercule coughed. "It's full of debris." I rolled my eyes and didn't respond. With my other sight, I scanned the stairs. Well, what was left of them. They were still serviceable, if you didn't mind skipping a few steps. The building had been built of very sturdy construction, and it was taking the carnage we were throwing at it like a champ. Which was more than could be said for those 9 pieces of dead men. "Clear," I called out. I fell in behind Hercule as he emerged from his own hidey hole. He turned back to me. "Get it? Because—" I patted him on the shoulder. Yes, I get it. It was a very cheesy joke. "I got more where that came from." Reva fell in beside us. "Maybe we keep them there." We kicked fallen chunks of the ceiling aside and ascended the final staircase. According to the schematics Fia had pulled before we had entered the building, this was sort of a servant's entrance, one of many on this floor up to the penthouse. I was counting on Eve to keep the doors open. So far, she hadn't let us down. Well, except for the incident in the elevator. We all make mistakes. The stairs were narrow. They twisted in a lazy helix. Every half lap we would pass a window overlooking the city below. "How do you think Fear's doing?" Reva whispered. I'd been trying not to think about it. I couldn't afford to get distracted. She hadn't reconnected her comm, but that didn't mean anything. It could have been damaged or lost in the fight. She'll have taken the little menace out and be sleeping it off in the lobby. I lied to myself and reassured Reva all at the same time. I had every faith she would survive the fight. That's not what worried me. Where she ended up afterwards, that was another matter. She'll be fine, I insisted. Definitely more for myself this time. We didn't kick the door in. We didn't blast it off its hinges. Running into the room guns blazing, that would have been unprofessional, despite how satisfying and badass it would have looked. Besides, I knew there was no one in the immediate area on the other side to gun down. I had looked through the walls. This door didn't exactly open to the penthouse proper. It led to a pseudo-kitchen and servants' room. That was connected to a hallway tucked in behind the stage that opened to the penthouse. Clearly, this whole place had been designed for big parties and maximum presentation. As we proceeded down the featureless hallway, I scanned the vast room ahead of us. For the first time in a long time, I couldn't make out much in the way of detail. Something was blocking my sight. It wasn't so much that I couldn't see anything, my other sight was just blurry, like looking at the world through fogged glass. There were shapes ahead of us, though. Multiple targets. "Can't see shit," I muttered. "We don't know who might be in there?" Reva whispered behind me. "What's the plan, then?" They looked at me, expectant. "We just move in. Guns at the ready, don't fire. I want to try and get a confession out of her if I can. It would make it easier for any future investigations. And get me out of the shit faster." "She could just gun us down as soon as we step out," Hercule objected. I shook my head. No, she won't do that." Reva raised an eyebrow. "Why not?" It's not the type of woman she is. She likes spectacle. She'll want to make a moment of this, savor it. Don't forget, she thinks she's going to walk out of here alive." Hercule made to object again, but Reva could see my thoughts and she had met Sierra. She knew exactly what I was talking about. I wasn't just clutching at straws, I was right. "Okay," she forestalled Hercule. "Okay, let's do this." I turned back to the slim double doors at the end of the hall, hesitated for one long second, then pushed them open. I didn't think I'd had any expectations when I'd opened those doors, but the fact I was surprised by what I saw meant that I'd been expecting more than what was here. The huge space that had once before been the scene of a lavish party now stood mostly empty, the scant furnishings consisting of mostly a few tables and chairs. An assembly of people stood at the far end of the room opposite to the stage. Not another squad of mercs, just a group of suits. These weren't even the lush corpo CEOs, these were sensible underlings. These were the people who actually got shit done. They stood gathered around Sierra as she talked calmly, handing out data slates. It was like we'd walked into the end of a weekly reports meeting. I could just make out what she was saying from where we stood. "I want this front and center tomorrow. Harrison, this needs to be implemented this week, Thursday at the latest." She paused to look our way for a brief moment. "Damn, sorry, my next appointment is here. Any questions, call Tammy." Well, that was extremely disconcerting. I'd walked in on people trying to fake confidence and power. They were always more showy, overcompensating. Sierra was treating this like another Tuesday. So either she was actually insane, or she knew something we didn't. None of the suits even hesitated at the sight of us three, heavily armed and armored and extremely fucked up. That indicated that not only did they have immense confidence in their boss, but they too knew something we didn't. Sierra moved away to one side of the room in a gentle sway. She spoke to us without even looking our way. "Ulf and friends." Her voice was what I thought of as her no-nonsense business tone of voice. She reached the wall and pressed a panel. There was a slight click. All three of us leveled our weapons at her. She rolled her eyes in the most contemptuous way possible. "Oh, please." The panel slid aside, to show a drinks cabinet, all top shelf in crystal decanters. "Can I offer you a drink?" She reached in, a vision of relaxed confidence in a pantsuit. "No? Maybe later." She poured herself a scotch and dropped in some cold rocks, giving it a gentle swirl. I scanned the room around us with my other sight. I didn't even dip into the book to enhance my power. Something was blocking me. Again, it was like I was looking through fogged glass. My own sight was clear, but the energy signatures, the data flows, it was all a vague blur. She glanced my way, seeing the frustration on my face. "Oh, sorry. I've had a dampener on this room. I didn't work for months with Travis not to figure out how you sneaky little ciphers work." "Travis?" It was the first thing I'd said since entering the room, and my voice sounded small in the huge space. "Yes, the other cipher. The one your sister munched down on just over there." She took a casual sip of her drink, then motioned to the stage. "Her claw marks were a real hassle to repair, so I'm told." "I can't say I'm sorry." "About the stage or Travis?" "Pick one." She shrugged and took another sip. "Speaking of necessary evils, I take it the goblin is dead at this point?" "I checked over the cameras, and your sister seems to have taken that suit of his apart. I couldn't see a trace of him. Shame, really, despite the fact he was a filthy little gremlin. He will be hard to replace." She didn't sound the least bit bothered by Shaky's demise. "You've made your way through my security, too, and someone's playing havoc with my little boffins in my cyber defense team. I'll admit you have me at a loss on who that is. But they turned off all the safety protocols, and we can't seem to reinstate them." Again, she sounded completely nonplussed. My turn to shrug. "We all have our secrets." Her eyes narrowed. "Let's see. Reva, I know. But the brute. I think I can assume that's the Merlin Tech lackey, Hercule Mason. I'm guessing your uncle sent you down that little rabbit hole out in the stacks." I was surprised that on top of her admission to knowing the stranger by name, she admitted to knowing about the events at the stacks. This was as good as a direct confession. "How did you know about the stacks? As far as anyone's concerned, they'd all been cut off. News travels fast, but..." She sighed. "Ulf, honestly, you know. I know you know. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't need them." She snapped her fingers. The three of us were suddenly on guard, looking around the room, waiting for the penny to drop. Panels opened up on the walls behind her, and a series of sentry guns dropped down, pivoting to take aim at us. "I wouldn't make any sudden moves. I guarantee they'll shred you faster than you can pull the trigger." "Where were those when we were all being held hostage?" A dismissive gesture. "Firstly, I don't give away all the cards up my sleeves until I need to. Secondly, I couldn't have any interruptions while Travis worked." "You're kidding me. That's fucking bold." Reva spoke up before I could. "So that was all part of your plan, too?" She laughed, a cute little polite laugh, like I'd told a knock-knock joke. "Oh, my grubby little half-blood. Of course it was planned. Well, not the part where he turned on me. He did go a little off script. But that's why you were there. Always have a contingency plan, that's my motto." "You wanted him to take the party hostage?" Reva asked. "For what?" Light dawned on me. "You needed him to remove all your opposition." I wasn't surprised. She did look surprised. "Why, yes. Didn't you—" She laughed again. "You hadn't figured that part out yet?" "I suspected, but thank you for the confirmation." In all honesty, the fact that he had turned on her, I assumed the whole stunt had been completely his idea. Going off the rails, I thought he'd just snapped and decided to pursue his own agenda. "I must know," she asked, eager curiosity leaking into her voice. "Did you find his little trinket?" I wasn't sure if I should give it away, but before I could stop myself, an impulse forced me to put my hand on the pouch. I wasn't entirely sure why I did it. "Oh, good. And given that I couldn't find any trace of the book I gave to that delusional coven down in the garden, I'm assuming you recovered that one too? I would have heard reports by now, surely, if someone else had dredged it out of that swamp." "Lucky guess. But yes, interesting reading material you have. Any other little black books in your library?" I asked, not expecting an answer. She gave me a sly smile. For the first time, it touched her eyes. 1 or 2. I wanted to move, to get in closer, to get to cover. Something. I was itching to take a step. But those guns. She put her glass down, then proceeded to unbutton her suit jacket. She was wearing a full 3-piece suit. The vest underneath hugged her figure, while the blouse was just sheer enough to show a hint of skin through the white fabric. She closed her eyes, setting the jacket aside gently and closing the drinks cabinet. The concentration that came over her face, I recognized that expression. I haven't had a chance to flex these muscles in so long. She made a complicated motion with one hand, then brought the other one up to meet it, palms touching horizontally. I hope I don't disappoint. Her skin began to glow blue beneath the fabric, her arms showing geometric and jagged shapes. Oh, fuck off. Deep down, I had feared she'd used the books on herself. I'd hoped I was wrong, and I'd chosen to hope for the best. I was even hoping she'd only had the 2. Past me was a fucking idiot. The penthouse was loosely furnished. There was little cover. There was nowhere to run. I barely had time to speak. Break! Hercule had been faster than me. He'd pulled a smoke grenade while she'd been lighting herself up. It sailed through the air and erupted into a plume of grey as she extended her arms in front of her. Lightning arced through the air. It lanced towards us, blowing through the smoke as we broke apart, fleeing in separate directions. It hit the floor, missing us barely. She didn't strike out a second time instantly. She took her time, enjoying the moment. I forgot how good it feels to let off some steam. A second bolt, grounding just behind me. Oh, please do run. Makes it sport. I fled across the floor, trailing Reaver and dodging to throw off Sierra's aim. We were making for the doorway off to one side, not knowing where it led. Reaver collided with the door and almost tore it from its hinges. I landed beside her as I lunged for safety, another lance of lightning barely missing me. I could hear the click of the she-elf's heels as she walked across the room. The clank and the hiss of another smoke grenade deployed by Hercule, and the whole room was filled with an unmoving haze, giving us the cover we so sorely needed. Smoke? Really? So primitive. Do you really think I won't be able to find you? All that blood and fear? I can practically smell you. I rolled over, looking to Reva. She was sweating, breathing hard. The stim's pain relief was wearing off. Behind her and above was a security camera. I pointed down the lens, leveling a finger at it. Eve, if you're in there, some help would be mighty appreciated. Sierra's voice rang out again, echoing off the sheer walls. Who's Eve? Your new friend in the system? I peeked out from our hiding space to see the thick smoke unmoving. I touched Reva's arm, our telepathic connection going 2 ways. You go straight. I'll hug the wall. Toss out anything you can spare as a decoy noise, I told her. She nodded. And Hercule? I frowned. Hope he's smart enough to stay down. If you find him, tell him. If he or you get eyes on her, take the shot. Otherwise, just try and keep her distracted and stay in cover. She nodded. And you? I kissed her. Quickly, no passion, just one for luck. I'm going to try and take a more direct approach. We emerged, moving as quietly as possible. I unclipped the scope from my carbine and threw it into the smoke, close to where I thought Sierra was. The sound of lightning crackling, she had taken the bait, and the light illuminated her briefly. I was about to take the shot, then I realized. Fuck. If I missed, I had no idea where Hercule was. Reva knew to take cover and stay low. But the big guy. I tried my other sight, but again, nothing happened, nothing changed. I could barely make out any figures in the smoke. I can feel you trying to use your magic, Sierra called out. I told you, it won't work in here. I reached out with my mind, my will intending to invade her mind, as I'd done with the puppets in the hallway below, my hand gripping the small black book as I extended my senses. She tisked at me through the smoke. You're not listening. This is my world now. Up here, I'm in charge. Up here, I control everything. I slid to a stop against the wall and tried to come up with something. I was breathing hard. I had to keep moving. I had to keep her on her toes. I looked around me, not sure what I was looking for. I lashed out mentally in every direction, looking for a weak spot, something to latch onto, to control. My other sight overlaid on my normal vision despite how useless it was. For just a split second, there was a slight shimmer on the timber of the wall. I turned and pressed my hand against it, risking her finding me and summoning my hieroglyphics, the yellow light illuminating the smoke around me. I tried to run a jolt of power into the wall. It radiated out as though it was rippling across water. Symbols, sharp, angular designs ringed in runes. No way. How clever. How old school. But she was old school, wasn't she? All around the room, across the glass of the ceiling too, probably. They must have been everywhere. You watered the whole floor. All because of me. That's some serious effort. It was unwise of me to speak out, but I was impressed and a little flattered. Those books are full of interesting little tidbits, but unless you're a better cipher than Travis, I'm guessing you can't read it. The smoke started to twist and eddy in the air, but there was no breath or breeze to move it. Shapes began to move, shadows and silhouettes. The key is not to use the power. That's where he went wrong. That's what I didn't tell those daft witches. The power is a byproduct of the book. The true power is the knowledge in its pages. No, I don't know. It's been working pretty well so far, I called into the smoke. I dashed to one side as soon as I'd spoken, then ran, taking a dive and rolling to a stop against another wall. The place where I'd been erupted in sound. It sounded like ice being smashed against the floor. Foolish boy! But you learn. I'm tempted to let you live just so I can see the look on your face when you realize what it costs. My hand gripped the spine of the book where it sat nestled on my belt. Dad had said it was a bad idea, but I don't think he actually knew why. From how Sierra was talking, she had a better idea of its side effects. See, I would be more powerful with those tomes in my hand, but that's where my grandfather went wrong. I have learnt from his mistakes. I am not so impatient. Figures in the smoke, shadows moving fast. Big and bulky, Hercule, slim and lean. Raver? The bitch was doing something to the smoke. She was using a spell to disorientate us, to trick us. She was toying with us. I'll pay what it costs, I said, hefting my stolen carbine. If it rids the world of you, fair trade. You don't understand. I can make this city better. But it's like renovating a house. You need to strip away all the damaged goods first. I turned to the sound of her voice in the smoke, advancing slowly, waiting to see her outline in the grey. You just need to trust the process. There she was, a slender shape, arms stretched out wide, the glowing markings on her skin giving the smoke a pale blue tint around her. I took aim. I pulled the trigger. A 3-shot burst. I heard a cry of pain. I had her. The figure fell to the ground. She sounded heavy. Oh no. I ran towards the downed shape. As I grew closer, it morphed. The glow died away. It shifted into the huge bulk of Hercule. I slid to a stop at his side. 3 bullet holes, 2 in his chest high up, 1 in his already damaged arm. The sparks of his now definitely ruined arm were the least of my worries. My shots had taken him in the soft spots above the subdermal. Blood leaked in streams from the wounds, wriggling their slow descent to the floor. Fuck, that was you? He winced as he spoke. His eyes looked down at his other arm, his integrated hand cannon deployed. She had us there, didn't she? He coughed. Blood splattered his lips. I ripped some seal and squeal from the pouch at my belt and sprayed it on the wounds, stemming the flow of blood, but only from the outside. The wounds had gone into his chest on an angle and must have nicked his throat. His voice was weak. His breathing was wet. Not good. We'll get you out of here, buddy. Don't let up. We'll. He coughed again. It sounded worse. She got us good. I frowned for a moment before looking at the huge barrel protruding from his arm. He had had his sights on me. He was about to blow me away, thinking I was her. I need to get you out of here. I stopped. Out to where? Out of the way? Away from friendly fire? Pick a direction. Where was I going to take him to? I chose one and dragged him across the floor until we met a wall. Sierra's light tone echoed in the smoke. Are we having fun yet? My eyes darted to every shadow, every gust of movement in the clouds of white and grey. I propped Hercule against the wall. I'll be fine. I didn't believe him, but I could lie too. You gonna walk out of here, buddy? He shrugged, wincing. If I die here, Darcy's gonna kill me. Hold on to this. I passed him my carbine. I didn't have time to ask where his was. He hefted it in his offhand. Well, you need it? Did I? What about Reva? I didn't want this to happen again. Reva was in my head. She knew what had just happened. You could count on it. But I had no way of hearing her. There was no way I could find her. I could too easily be fooled a second time. The room was huge. The smoke refused to dissipate. I suspected Sierra was using her magic to keep it from settling. Keep it moving, keep it growing. With all my thoughts, I urged Reva to find a wall and stick to it, to find cover and keep low. You hold on to it, you might need it. What about you? I reached for my sword. I can't trust my eyes unless I'm close up and personal. Peekaboo. Sierra again. I turned, peering into the grey. I got to my feet and began to pace around the room, following the wall. Peekaboo. Her mocking tone was getting under my skin. Peekaboo. She was trying to draw me out. I see you. A gust of wind like a tornado slammed me against the wall behind me. The smoke blew apart, giving me a visual pathway leading back to the source. I gasped for air. It was rushing past me so fast it created a vacuum over my mouth. It drew what little air I had out of my lungs. I thought I could see a shape ahead of me, but I couldn't do anything but squint and struggle. What part of you thought this was a good idea? She stepped forward casually. One hand was held ahead of her, directing the column of air at me, holding me in place. The other, she thrust out, fingers splayed. The floor in front of me rippled and cracked. Shards of marble tiles bounced into the air, cracks radiating through them, splitting smaller, sharper. I might not have been born with innate power like you, but what I've learned far exceeds your petty tricks, even with that book at your side. You needed to ward an entire penthouse just to get the upper hand? I managed through gritted teeth. She drew her fingers back into a fist, tendons straining against the skin, her knuckles white. The shards of stone leveled themselves at me, hovering in the air. I don't need them. It just speeds things up. She made a sweeping gesture and the shards went from a standing start to the speed of sound instantly. I deployed my shields from my arms as soon as she had flinched. They tore through my sleeves and I managed to cover my face and neck just in time. 100 blades of tiny stones sliced into me, cutting apart my synthetic skin, bouncing off my subdermal. Like Hercule, though, some parts of me were not covered, and I felt every sliver that passed my defenses like razor blades. I gritted my teeth against the pain, refusing to give her the satisfaction of crying out. The wind abated and I fell to the floor, pulling my legs up and making my body as small of a target as possible, waiting for the second wave. Look at you, huddled there, pathetic, weak vermin. I peeked out from behind my shield, sword still gripped tight in my hand, judging the distance between me and her. She was open. If I was fast, I might be able to. It took me a second to see something moving behind her. The panel of the wall at her back began to move, slowly, smoothly. Another gun array, like the first, slid forward. She was too busy gloating. She didn't hear a thing. At least, I thought she hadn't. There was a light series of clicks as the guns locked into position. Sierra whipped around to see her arsenal tuned on her. Eve had clearly decided to let me fend for myself, when every barrel let rip a curtain of lead. I barely made it out of the path of the gunfire as dozens of barrels opened fire on the she-elf. She should have been cut to shreds. She should have turned into a red stain on the floor. She had been just quick enough. A wall of lead cones was being built in front of her. Layer by layer, they were halted mid-flight. Any shot that would have gone wide continued past her and embedded itself in the wall I'd been pinned to. Light flickered in the runic patterns where the bullets tore apart the wall. The very walls had been inscribed and enchanted. It was how she was dulling my powers. They were only good while they were intact, though. I looked back to where she stood, holding her own against a torrent of firepower. I could tell it was straining her. She slid backwards just a few inches as the pressure from the heavy firepower pushed up hard against her magical shield. Then, with all the effort she could muster, she flung out one hand and a shockwave of pure energy lashed the wall, crushing the gun array. She staggered forward, breathing heavily. Sweat rolled from her forehead, her body shivered from the strain. I knew an opening when I saw it. I made a dash for her, sword at the ready, every one of my joints on fire. I was closing in fast. I wasn't fast enough, though. Only a few steps from her, one of her hands came around. She didn't even look. A kinetic strike slammed into me. Nowhere near as powerful as the one she just used to wreck the wall, but it was strong enough to launch me into the air, throwing me clear across the room. I hit the floor and skidded to a halt, feeling it. "How dare you turn my weapons against me?" An idea, stupid and genius, flitted through my head. "You haven't seen the half of it," I coughed, staggering to my feet. I tilted my head up, calling to the room in general at the top of my voice. "Eve, do whatever you have to. Shred the walls!" Sierra's eyes went wide as she realized. "No!" It was as if her voice carried enough force to move the clouds of smoke. An expanding sphere of clear air blew away from her. I saw multiple panels on the walls open up, barrels extended, and opened fire. I dropped to the floor. Hercule slid down to lay on his side below the crossfire. I just caught sight of Reva as she dove into a small doorway at the base of the stage, looking for cover. Sierra didn't bother taking cover. She threw up kinetic shields all around her. She was practically encased in static lead. Every other shot tore the walls apart. They didn't cover every angle of the room, but they did enough. Sierra, or someone, had wrapped the room in the magical equivalent of an anti-violence field. It had dulled my senses. It had blocked me. Somehow it was cutting me off from my own power. But no more. As powerful as it was a house of cards. Once you started to pull it apart, it didn't take much to make it collapse. The gunfire abated and I got to my feet as Sierra let the shields drop. Bullets hit the floor, rattling like metallic rain. She was panting, sweating. Her hair was disheveled. She looked like she'd gone around in the ring with Reva. I gave my sword an idle twirl, my arms lighting up in yellow rings. My offhand touched the book, and I felt a jolt of power. More hieroglyphics encased my torso like armor made of light. Walls down. Rules change. I thrust my sword forward, and the tip aimed at her chest despite the distance between us. I felt a surge, the same as when I channeled magic in the garden, turning it into raw electricity. It coursed through me, manifesting a physical state across my blade, and lancing towards her. She took the strike, directly in the chest, and it blew her off her feet. She tumbled in the air, the electricity still connecting with her until she hit the floor. "How's it feel?" I strode towards her, all pain forgotten, all risk ignored. Rage fueled me, it burned in my veins. "It's too bad I can't make you feel all the pain you've inflicted on this city." I shot her with another jolt of power. She writhed on the floor, her body going tense, her mouth locked in a soundless scream. "But don't worry, I'll give it a damn good try." I got within a few meters of her, knowing better than to close the gap even now. Her once pristine clothes were burnt and shredded. Her flesh beneath was blackened. Her skin still glowed with arcane magic. It was the only thing keeping her alive. End of the line, bitch! I knew I had to get in close for the killing blow. It was the only way to be sure. I was wary of her, though. My mistake was my hesitation. A growl, a roar of anger. All at once her hands rose, glowing orange and smoking. Crap, I had nowhere to go. I tried to spin out of the way, but flames caught me on my shoulder and arm as I turned. It burned away the layers of cloth and leather. It seared my synthetic skin, and I felt it on my face, threatening to melt my eyes and sizzling my hair. I screamed out in pain, staggering even as the flames died away. Tears filled my eyes. I fell to the floor, my body covered in heat and pain. It was too much pain, too much to react, to fight back. I couldn't focus. Shots rang out from the stage. Reaver. The smoke had cleared now. Well, sort of. She'd had a clear shot. From across the room, she had taken aim and opened fire. Sierra didn't see it coming. Her shields weren't ready. Reaver's aim was low, though. It took Sierra in one leg, and before she could adjust her aim, Sierra turned the flames on Reaver. The small and focused burst that had taken me extended into an ever-expanding cone. It grew the further it got from its source, but didn't diminish. The timbers of the stage ignited in the center of a white-hot furnace. I didn't even have time to cry out, but I could feel Reaver's panic, her fear. The fire disappeared as fast as it had been conjured. She could only maintain it for so long. Filthy green skin whore! Sierra screamed at the top of her lungs, throwing a kinetic wall of force at the burning timbers, exploding them into shattered piles of smoking wood and steel. I clutched the side of my face, a burning sensation all across that side of my body. I tried to get to my feet, but they betrayed me and I collapsed. I could hear coughing, wood being shifted. I looked back to the stage. Reaver emerged, falling out of her hiding place. Her hair was burnt, her clothes charred. She fell to her knees, gasping for air. Enough of this mockery! The marble between Sierra and Reaver shattered, and a hail of stone shards launched themselves at Reaver. No! I moved without thinking. I went from a prone position to lunging through the air in a moment. Sword forgotten, punch dagger extended in front of me. I didn't see what happened to Reaver. Neither did Sierra. She spun to meet me. My blade met her eye. It sunk deep, only stopping as the width of the blade was too much for the size of her eye socket. Sierra stood, her shocked and pale face only inches from my own. Her lips moved in a soundless mutter. Then, as though in slow motion, she collapsed to her knees and fell backwards. I couldn't sustain my own weight. I fell too, landing atop her, folding her in an awkward position. We lay there for a full minute, her corpse motionless, my charred and quivering body still processing the pain. All around me, smoke began to rise from the multitude of fires now burning in the room. I knew I needed to get to my feet. I needed to go see Reaver. She was alive. She had to be. I could just feel her on the edge of my senses. I was about to roll off of Sierra. I had just enough energy for that. I was tossed into the air. My hand, which the punch dagger was connected to, was torn from my arm. I spun through the air, straight up, then straight down. I hit the cracked marble floor with enough force to drive the wind from my lungs, and I felt my jaw crack. My eyes looked up at the sound of motion. A pair of once well-polished high-heel boots stood before me. I continued to look up, past the torn and burnt pantsuit, well, what was left of it, into the one good eye of the once beautiful Sierra Tolomine. How the fuck do I kill you? I spluttered past broken teeth. Peasant! I ruled for centuries. I will rule again. I had never met a being I couldn't kill. But there was a first time for everything. She reached down, gripping me by the throat and lifting me effortlessly into the air. The one good eye locked on mine as she sneered victory. No blade or bullet or magic can kill me, you filthy little runt. I am pure. I am divine. I gasped for breath. My feet kicked empty air. Maybe she was right. Maybe she couldn't be killed by any weapon I held. But there was still one thing I hadn't tried. I lashed out, mentally. My will, my consciousness hitting her mind like a tsunami. Her eye went wide. She had put up mental safeguards, firewalls for hackers, magical blocks for arcane attacks. They were like a wall of sandbags against an infinite rising tide. I would overflow sooner or later. I would get inside. Her body began to shudder. The walls in her mind were being reinforced. She was funneling all her magic into those defenses. She had limits, though. I knew it. It was costing her all she could summon. I could go higher. I knew I could. I knew I could overwhelm her. The book, it was infinite. It was bottomless. I could feel that now. With every inch I withdrew, I saw deeper into its depths. It was limitless potential. It dwarfed mine. It swallowed mine. But with every sip of power I took, I gave up a fraction of my own ability. It was a trade. Power for power. That was what she had meant. You see it now, don't you? What it costs. It was a strangled voice, almost silent, whispering at me from the other side of the mental blocks. No one has ever given up that tome willingly. You belong to it now. You're worthless without it. It was the truth. It didn't occur to me to disbelieve her. Somehow I knew. It will consume you, suck you dry. It will end you, boy. I split my mind, pushing deep into the void of power, while keeping up the barrage on her mind. I drank deep from the black well of power, storing it up, filling myself to bursting. I was creating a void, a vacuum of power in the book itself. I could feel it in my veins. I was empty, I had nothing left to return. But I wanted more, and I knew where I could offer more power. The power in me grew, the void grew, and the book was hungry. The ever-rising tide of power, barely held in place by my will alone. Then I let it go. I let the dam burst and the wave flow. It crashed over her defenses and I rode it. It drowned out her voice and I let the book use me as a conduit to reach into its new prey. In the same way it was feeding on my magic, the book drank deep from the well that was Sierra, supping the power from her very bones. We screamed in unison. We both lay on the remains of the destroyed ballroom floor, staring into the void of space beyond the glass ceiling, motionless and half dead. I couldn't feel the connection any longer. The link I'd had with her mind, it was dead. I couldn't feel Reva for that matter. I tried to summon power from the book. It had been at my fingertips, but nothing happened. I tried to sense it. It was elusive. Rolling onto my side, I looked across at Sierra. She groaned. She wept. Her body twisting in pain and shuddering, slowly struggling into a kneeling position, then stumbling to her feet, falling to her knees again and rising. I watched, helpless, no strength left as she reached down and picked up my own sword from the floor. Distantly, I recognized that this was absolute bullshit. I'd given her all I had. I'd ruined her mind, I'd stripped her power, and now I was about to be killed with nothing but a sharp strip of metal. She spat blood across the room as she staggered from side to side, taking one step after another towards me. You little bastard! I flinched, actually pulling back from the hatred in her voice. You tried. You tried and failed. I'm still here when you're long dead. She took 2 more uneasy steps towards me. I will still be here making this city. I never found out what she was going to make the city. A shape loomed out of the smoke that was behind her. She was cut off by the smallest of sounds, the sound of a grenade pin bouncing off the floor. A huge metallic arm wrapped itself around her neck and pulled her back into the haze. The explosion did what I'd failed to do. It shut her the fuck up. As for me, I saw white hot brilliance, and then peace and quiet. Epilogue. Fia stepped down the long narrow set of stairs that led to the basement shop. The door at street level proclaimed, in scratched and tatty letters, Blackwood, Tomes and Texts. She hadn't been here in ages, and a familiar chill passed over her as she reached the curtain at the bottom of the steps. It marked the official boundary of the shop, a shop that had more creepy magic about it than the next 10 magic hotspots in the city put together. She raised a hand to her head and slid off her headphones that had been drowning out the noise of the street only moments before. A touch of a button and she paused the song Part-Time God by the Bad Dreamers. Her hand then delved into the folds of the thick red fabric across the opening and pulled it to one side, stepping across the threshold as she did so. A man sat behind the counter opposite the entrance. His skin was dark, his dreadlocks darker, but the eyes that scanned the pages in his hand were a vibrant green. He was dressed in a black leather vest, like a biker's cut, with leather van braces encircling his wrists. His shoulders were bare and covered with barely visible arcane tattoos. The shop opened up to her left. Shelves upon shelves stacked high with books, most neatly categorized, some few stacked on the floor waiting for sorting at a later date. Books. In today's age, it was amazing he made enough money to stay in business. The man behind the counter looked up at the sound of her entrance, and the corner of his mouth twitched into a smile. Fia, love, to what do I owe the pleasure? Fia smiled, genuinely glad to see him too. Hey, Tobias. Tobias was one of the few people who knew what she was and didn't flinch at being alone with her. If anything, that made her nervous. And where is that no-good piece of shit brother of yours? He tilted his head to one side to look up the stairway behind her, as though Ulf was hiding somewhere back up at street level. He's, healing up. We've had a rough week. He nodded and gently placed the book he'd been reading down, marking his place with an old scrap of paper. Oh yeah, the fight with that elf bitch, I heard about that. Fia didn't bother to hide her surprise. It wasn't like the incident had been made public yet. How did you... He got to his feet and stretched his arms high above his head, linking his fingers together, palms up. The muscles in his arms tensed in an enticing way. Even though Fia was a girl's girl all the way, a small primitive voice in the back of her head reminded her that this was a rather attractive physique to another kind of woman. I know things, love. It's what I do. That much magic getting tossed around. It's like a fucking flare to the right eyes. Want a cuppa? His arms dropped to his sides and he motioned to the door at his back that opened into his private apartment. Fia shook her head. No, I can't stay. She hefted the small suitcase she'd been carrying and placed it on the counter. Actually, I need a favor. Tobias raised an eyebrow in curiosity. He pointed to the case. May I? She nodded. He gently unzipped the top, as though it would bite. He lifted the flap a little and after a brief peek inside, flipped it over completely. 5 small books sat, nestled in packing peanuts, ominous in their simplicity. Fia let out a tense breath as she looked down at them. She shivered, and this time it had nothing to do with the shop. He picked up one at random and turned it over in his hands, lifting it to his nose and smelling it before opening it. His eyes went wide as he skimmed the text within. Girl, where in the green man's name did you get these? Fia smiled, nervously. It's a long story. She looked over her shoulder at the street above and seemed to come to a decision. Maybe I will take that cuppa. Thank you for listening to Cyphers Edge. Subscribe so as not to miss future episodes. New episodes uploaded every second Saturday. Script and narration by JJ Brandis. Music was provided by Cale McLeish. Copyright JJ Brandis 2025.